Welcome to the presentation of the assessment development process for Gwinnett County Public Schools. This video aims to provide insight into how we create and revise district assessments. Additionally, a streamlined version of this process is used to create local school assessments to ensure they are aligned to the standards being assessed, along with all district and state assessments. The key to the development of all district-created assessments are our teachers. The assessment leadership team works closely with the Office of Accountability and Assessment as data reviewers, item writers, and assessment developers. Assessment leadership team members are specifically trained teachers from every content area that are volunteers or nominated by their principals. They are trained on all aspects of assessment literacy because we believe that the collaborative discussion about items and data is the most effective way to help teachers understand their standards and the cognitive complexity required to show mastery. We continuously provide more opportunities for teachers to receive the training and to participate in the district data review process. Before reviewing any assessment, assessment leadership team members are trained on the following: learning targets and deconstructing the standards as it relates to assessments. It is important for teachers to be able to identify the learning targets and the types of thinking needed for a student to show mastery of the standards. Additionally, we look at the level of rigor or ceiling of the standard to make sure we are assessing that mastery level. Next, teachers are trained and practice identifying depth of knowledge, or DOK, which is the level of cognitive complexity an item represents. Universal design, or item writing, helps teachers format assessment items to ensure there are no distractions in the way items are written that would confuse or prevent students from attending to the item. It also helps teachers understand the parts of an item and the importance of plausible distractors to identify common misconceptions students may have. Accessibility training focuses on sensitivity and bias and reviewing items to ensure there are no barriers in the question that might prohibit a student from responding to an item based on content or because it may be insensitive to a particular group of students. We also train on text complexity of passages. In GCPS, we use 3 measures when creating district assessments: Lexile, Text Evaluator, and the Fisher-Fry rubric for qualitative features of text. For psychometrics and data analysis, we train on the following: p-values, item discrimination, and point by serial to build teachers' capacity when reviewing data on district assessment items. Development of district assessments in Gwinnett County Public Schools is a cyclical process that begins with instructional calendars. Whether it is a change in state standards upon which our AKS are written, the development of new assessments, or revision of existing assessment items based on previous year's data, we start with a review of the instructional calendars and pacing guides provided by the Office of Teaching and Learning each year to ensure all items are aligned. These are used to create blueprints, which are roadmaps for district assessments. District assessment coordinators work with trained assessment leadership team members to use instructional calendars and pacing guides to create blueprints that reflect the appropriate number of items according to instructional time spent on concepts and the DOK suggested by the language of the AKS. These help ALT members determine what mastery looks like for each standard and what students will have to do in order to show mastery. Next, blueprints are created and verified by our office for alignment to instructional calendars, number of items, distribution of DOK levels, and item types. Note, not every standard on the instructional calendar for a given period of time will be assessed. For example, some recall and identification standards may be excluded from district assessments. With limited real estate and time on the assessments, we strive to hit those standards that encompass basic knowledge targets at the reasoning level. These standards may be better suited to be assessed on in-class formative assessments. The final blueprint is shared with the assessment developers to aid in the creation of items. The creation of a blueprint prior to the creation of the assessment and even instruction is one of the most important parts of the process because of the positive impacts it can have on instruction. Finally, they tell assessment creators what types of questions will be used to assess each standard, such as multiple choice, constructed response, or other forms of technology-enhanced items. Once the blueprint has been created, our assessment leadership team will meet with the district assessment coordinators to create test items that align to the blueprint and create the first draft of the test form. Note, the majority of test items are created by GCPS teachers. However, a small amount of our questions are vendor contracted items. These items are still reviewed and revised by our assessment leadership team to ensure content alignment, verbiage is consistent with our AKS, the quality of the graphics, and sensitivity and bias issues meet the standards set by Gwinnett County Public Schools. All items should do the following: align to the instructional calendar, assess AKS at the correct grade level, have a single key, and contain distractors that address common misconceptions. Once the items have been created, the Office of Accountability and Assessment takes the test forms through our quality check processes. Gwinnett County Public Schools is dedicated to ensuring that the assessments students take are both reliable, measuring student knowledge the same way every time with every student, and valid, that the assessment will measure what it is supposed to measure. To ensure this, GCPS uses a peer-reviewed process to quality control the creation of new district assessments and in the continual improvement of current assessments as data and feedback are given after the assessment is administered. Tests go through no less than 3 internal quality checks for grammar usage and mechanics and universal design for formatting and clarity. First, content leaders trained in assessment literacy will take, review, and make necessary recommendations to ensure that items and distractors are aligned to the correct grade level, instructional calendar, appropriateness, and that the key is correct. As a part of this process, the blueprint will be reviewed to verify the correct unit and domain, AKS, item position, key, DOK, and item type. Next, all accompanying resources such as formula sheets and rubrics will be checked for accuracy. Finally, these content leaders will identify the expected number of items a student should get correct without guessing at the meets and exceeds cut points. This information is used to determine the appropriate curve attached to the district assessment. Once the team leaders have finished their work, the Office of Accountability and Assessment will apply the suggested edits and enter the assessments into the testing platform. Online and paper assessments are run through multiple internal quality checks for the requested changes, formatting, and grammatical errors at this time. Any errors found are corrected, and the accountability team is notified that the assessments are ready for printing and scheduling. Finally, in this step, the psychometrician that runs the data reports for all district-created assessments is notified that school-level blueprints can be created, verified, and placed into the Teacher Accountability and Resource Center, or TARC. Now that the assessment is finalized, the forms are printed and scheduled into the testing platform for all students. The accountability team ensures that the appropriate settings and accommodations are now applied. For forms used in a previous year, we strive to keep them as intact as possible to maintain reliability from year to year. However, revisions are made based on data analysis and changes in the instructional calendars. Feedback from teachers on each district assessment through their local school's testing coordinator and data is analyzed by grade and content area. Flagged items are reviewed by assessment leadership team members and recommendations are made to district assessment coordinators for implementation. Note that this is a cyclical process, and any changes to the assessment requires that the process needs to begin again. To ensure that our processes will create the best possible look at student achievement and mastery, our assessment creation, revision, and analysis processes are reviewed twice a year by 3 external parties. The Technical Advisory Committee, or TAC, is comprised of experts in the field of large-scale assessments. Members of our TAC include representatives from the National Center for Assessment, the president of the National Council on Measurement in Education, a member of the Board for Educational Testing Service, and professors in the area of research, measurement, and evaluation from the University of North Carolina and the University of Illinois Chicago. We also consult and elicit feedback from our Principal Advisory Committee, comprised of district principals from all levels, whenever we are making changes to our district assessment program. We hope this video gives you a better understanding of the processes we implement to ensure valid, reliable, and high-quality district assessments.